5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Talk beer for a second. Jesus.
Tell me about the dudes on the table here. What's
Okay.
story?
The squirrels?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a story behind them as much as I just thought they were hilarious.
Did you buy them that way? Like,
No, I made those. Yeah, I bought those. I don't do any taxidermy.
Whittled those.
You know what the crazy? Hey, Scott.
no, I mean like on the little
No, so check it
plaque
out.
thing.
I'm in a vintage toy store.
Okay.
A toy store. There's kids, moms and kids in there, and those are on the shelf.
Now was it?
And I'm like, I go,
that-
how much are these? And she told me how much they were, right? And I was like, oh. And then I walked out and I was like, oh, I gotta have those. So I went back in. I'm standing in line with these things. Those kids in front of me, kids behind me, in front of me. So I'm standing with these two squirrels with ball gags. And so there's an artist in Temecula that does a lot of weird taxidermy with squirrels.
Now were they on those stands or?
They're bookends.
Oh Lord.
Yeah,
Oh Lord,
they're bookends.
that's about right.
Yeah.
And then that's
Something wrong.
Captain Sensible.
Captain Sensible. All right. It almost seems like if you
Wood
buy those squirrels, like maybe you get registered somewhere.
Dude, it was in a kid's vintage toy store.
That's what I'm saying.
It was crazy.
It's almost like a setup.
Yeah, right.
You know what I paid for those things?
Please tell me.
$250 I paid for those squirrels.
Yeah, American currency.
Canadian. Yeah, I did.
Wow. Yeah, it's
Kinda
like
crazy.
it's almost like the people see you coming, like the tow truck, the locksmith guys. Like, oh, what can I squeeze?
Did you hear that?
What can I
Did you
squeeze?
hear what the guy charged me?
What can I squeeze out of that guy?
That was crazy.
Oh, how
Kraken.
much was it?
So I lost the keys to my river quiver in Fallbrook. And
How many times?
twice. Just stop.
No, and what time frame?
6 days or something. I call the guy in Fallbrook, comes over, $10, opens it up. I'm a rad, $10, that's fair. It literally took him 60 seconds. I go into Bend when it happens again, and this time all my rods are locked in, so I have to get it done. And the guy does it real quick. What, Scott, 60 seconds, 90, something?
Yeah.
Maybe? After he explains to us that he uses his lock picking kit to like get free games of pool.
Yeah.
You know, he has to put a quarter in or whatever it is. I go, cool, what do I owe you? And he goes, $100.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay. So I give him the $100. I go to the other locksmith in town and take the entire unit out. They key it. They make new keys for it, give me 4 keys and charge me $30.
And they installed it.
And they went out and installed. I forgot that part.
The girl spent more time installing it than the guy did picking it.
I know.
She should have said, "Oh, the key. Oh, yeah, to rekey it's $30. Oh, to install it's $150."
Right. Dude, $30. $30.
So we go. Is this go time? Are we ready?
We've
or-
been recording the whole
Okay.
time.
All right.
You know what I mean? I did a little intro when you weren't here.
Okay. So what
What's the
inspired you guys to start Big Neighborhood? It's a very macro question, but
It is, and I don't think the initial inspiration was coming off of being sick for a long time, right, with COVID, and the idea of going out and just healing, and then I started meeting people and talking to people, and it was prior to just a crazy 2020 election.
yeah.
Right? And so originally my thought was, I'm going to go do a podcast in these little towns, in little places with people that are totally different than me. And we can't be that divided, right? Like I'm going to go out and meet people and prove that we're not different. We just disagree.
Yeah.
And so I started kind of putting this thing together in my head. And then I started talking to Michael about a logo and just kind of help me brand, like, how do I do this kind of thing? And then Michael and I decided we wanted to do this thing. And it was probably 6 or 7 months in. And my son went into treatment, remember? And we were out. We were out on the road doing some stuff, and I got the call, and my son needed to go to treatment. And then I went home after that. I think we were in Hood River, and I went home after that, and it just dawned on me. And I think Michael already kind of knew. I think for Michael, he was kind of there anyway, part of it. But it dawned on me that this was really about mental health and community health and talking to people. And the idea that rather than finding strangers and just disagreeing with them, that maybe we could find people doing cool stuff and help them.
Okay.
Right? And the idea that the next 10 years of my life just seemed important.
Yeah.
Right? There's got to be more than just golf and work and pickleball. You know what I mean, though? And so it just seemed, and I remember talking to another friend and going, hey, the next decade seems important. And he just went, it is. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of the genesis of it, right? I mean, there's little nuanced things in between that happened, but that was sort of the idea of if we could sell apparel and we could have a company that had a responsibility to the community, not legally or for tax reasons, but a moral responsibility to give back. It seemed like a cool thing that you could start a company that had a conscience.
No, that's very cool.
You know?
How?
And then real quick,
Yeah.
I think it's how he comes into that origin might be a little different.
Well,
You know
that's
I
what
mean?
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I'm
how,
sorry.
How did your personal backgrounds influence the direction of the project? And I think, Joe, you answered some of that, but for Michael,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. I was just thinking about what you said and how it started, and we're going back into that right now, right? Like we're coming up on another crazy election cycle.
Right.
So it's almost hard to remember what it was like in 2020 and the beginning of when all that stuff happened. It feels like a dream or something. But now it's starting to pick back up again. It's like a good time for this, I think.
And I think we both, not to cut you off, I think we both have issues within ourselves and our families and everything else with mental health issues, right? Like I have depression and anxiety issues. I went through a crazy time of panic attacks and just anxiety, in general. And my son has it.
yeah,
And he has depression. And my daughter has anxiety. And my wife wanders around and doesn't have it, and it looks cool. It looks really fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have some
That's
stuff in your
it's a
family. And
big part of my story too, and depression and addiction and having, and there's been a lot of people close to me, and a lot of people close to both of us that have, peeled off and are lost or just,
Right.
Have died, just there's a lot of it's around. And I don't know anybody that doesn't have some of that around them,
Well, I think that the more we go out and talk to people, the more we realize that it's just everywhere and it's everyone. It doesn't mean that everyone's mentally ill. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everybody has something in their life, whether it be a relative or a friend or something. I have not
They're
met
touched by
one
it.
person that when I explain what I'm doing,
yeah.
that hasn't go, oh yeah, I totally get it. Like my
Right.
mom or my sister or my best friend or whoever it might be,
Can you describe the moment you realized that combining an apparel brand with a community-focused mission was the path you wanted to take?
Yeah, I think I can. The whole idea to begin with was like to get on the road and meet people and travel and have this thing function like a band,
Okay.
right? To go from city to city and place to place, and this would be our merch.
You're like Stillwater.
You know what I mean, though? And this would be our merch, and we would sell merch, and then we would go to the next town and meet people. And then it became, okay, well, how do we give back? Like I'm not rich, right? So I can't just drive around. As much as I'd love to just go give money out and help people out, we can't. So how do we generate that money? And you look at the other business models of Bombas and Patagonia and Tom's and other things, right? And how they're doing it. And it just seemed like if you could build a company that could give back, then that seemed to fit what we were doing, right? The idea of traveling and meeting people and finding what they do in their community. And a lot of this shit, like we talked about, people don't need a lot of money. It's not about a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a highlighter on it, right? And sometimes it's a few $100s or whatever it might be. So I think that was a lot of the genesis, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like a band. Like we go around
Yeah,
and we
totally.
do this thing, we talk to people, and then we sell T-shirts, right? And that's how we get to the next town.
And stickers and just like
Right.
have the whole kind of,
Right. And then
Lo-fi.
Michael came up with the idea of neighborhoodies.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big neighborhood, and the idea of neighborhoodies. And, you know, and hoodies, especially, we wanted to do a lot out of Oregon, and the hoodie seemed,
Sure.
it's cold. You know, so hoodie seemed to make sense, right?
You got the
But
Hood
almost
River,
everybody's got a hoodie,
and Hood
You
River.
know what I mean?
right?
And we really started a lot of it out of Hood River,
Yeah.
you know?
So based on my time with you guys in the past and just poking through the website and trying to learn more about what you guys are doing, from what I can glean and what you've said, Big Neighborhood aims to bridge divides and spark conversations across different communities. How'd you decide which communities or organizations to spotlight for your Roadcast?
I think that's pretty intuitive. You know what I mean? I don't think there's like a plan for that exactly,
Yeah.
but I think it's just sort of,
Is it all impromptu?
yeah,
I
we're
mean-
doing it kind of close to me because I've got a full-time job and some stuff like that to start. But I think like part of it's just about getting out there and you've traveled with Joe. You go out and you think you're going over here and you start going over there on the way and you bounce over and it's all there's a part of that that's just like synchronicity or whatever, you know, that's going on, and it's super cool. It's like it unfolds. So I trust that rather more than just like we got a plan, we got 8 things we're gonna do over, you know, like there's something just inherently built into it, I think, with that.
So the process has been more organic.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And part of the process is laying on the couch behind you, right? I mean, that's how this started,
Wait.
was with Oliver, which is I was healing.
Yeah.
I was taken off and I was just trying to get healthy, man. I thought I was done, right? And so in the summer of 2020, even my daughter would go with me sometimes, but I was healing. But he started triggering a lot of conversations with people. You see it, you saw it today, everywhere we go, right? And it started with a woman on the Metolius River at the Wizard Falls Hatchery. And I love fish hatcheries. And I went in there to walk around with Oliver. And I don't know if I've even told you this, but there was a woman there that had a group of developmentally disabled adults. And there's probably 20 of them. And they came in I think, bus van thing. I can't remember. And they were so cool. And they fell in love with Oliver, and they were talking to him, like probably 6 of them, not all of them. And I don't know what the diagnoses are. We're not here to talk diagnoses or meds or anything, right? We're not doctors. We're not, you know. But they came up and they loved him, and they were so sweet. And there's some on the spectrum, and there's some MS, and there's cerebral palsy. There's just different things going on with these young adults, right? And she came over, and she said, "I hope they're not bothering you." And I was like, "Absolutely not. They're wonderful." We had a good conversation with this kid that wants to be a photographer. You know, it was awesome. And so I started talking to her. I said, "This is your group." Yeah, and I said, "How often do you get them out to do stuff like this? Because this is awesome."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Not very often, a couple times a year." And I said, "Oh." And she said, "We're a small nonprofit." And she goes, "And we just can't afford it. And so if you don't mind, what does it cost to get them out?" You know, and the number was so surprisingly low, right? And that's when I went like, oh, what if I was doing this thing and we could generate money out here somehow and just give her that?
Yeah.
Like be able to write her a check right there. You know, and Michael and I have really talked about the idea of you walk a fine line, right? When you're giving stuff away.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, look at me. I'm giving another thing away, right?
Yeah.
So we've done a couple things, but we haven't really shown any of it,
Got it.
right? We need to somehow show people what we're doing, right? So they understand where the money's going and all this stuff. It doesn't just pay for me to fly fish and drive around.
Transparency is going to be a big deal.
Right. It is going to be a big deal. And I know I went around the bush there, but the idea, it is organic. So I'm in Eureka and I'm getting gas. The guy wants to come up and talk to me about my dog. And I talked to this gentleman for about 10 minutes. And then I look back as he gets in his van, and his van is plastered with stickers and those sort of magnetic, it's like a billboard, right? Support our troops, all this stuff. And so I just went over and knocked on his window. And I just go, hey, man, what's your story? You know, and he explained to me he's a Vietnam vet, and he does this thing, and he just travels the coast over there, and he just takes care of homeless people. And, you know, he's a doer.
Yeah.
So I go back a month later, and I podcast with him. He doesn't want anything from Big Neighborhood. But then he turns me on to a project that we can do through the College of the Redwoods.
Sure.
We were in Hood River, sat with a guy who introduced us to a guy, who introduced us to a woman who does this podcast, the Latinx community up there. We end up hooking up with them. We end up helping them out.
Yeah.
They lost the opportunity to do a podcast. So Michael and I went up there and gifted them what they needed to do a podcast. That podcast, I just got a text while we were here. She's like, we're 18 episodes in, and now we're doing video.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Totally.
I went up and had lunch with her.
Yeah.
Michael came to lunch once with her kids. She brings her kids.
Yeah.
And I went back with the other woman that's in that. So it's kind of this thing that you've been walking around with us too. I talk to a lot of people, you know, and
We
when
just
you
follow Oliver.
yeah, just
you
follow
know?
Oliver
Like,
around, right?
How many people will you talk to today because of Oliver, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think
so it is
one
organic.
thing I want to say one thing too. Like most people don't do that. Like, and that's part of the problem. Like, it's not everybody's first thought to go, I'm just gonna knock on the door and say, hey, what's up, man? What are you doing? Like most people feel further back.
Yeah.
And the tendency, especially post pandemic, is to kind of just go retreat into your
Become
camp.
very
And so
insular.
it's just, you know, it's got to be part of it.
Yeah.
And who better to do it, you know?
Do you ever? I know right now, like finding content, and I know that's not really what you're not going out saying like, I'm going to find something interesting today. You're stumbling into something that's becomes like you find interesting and you want to share it. Do you foresee it, you as you're trying to create content, saying like, okay, every month we need to go out and find content, or will you have a schedule, and can you maintain that if the content doesn't necessarily come to you that you find interesting?
It's a great question.
And then the second part of that is, when this blows up in a good way and you become busy, and then people start saying, hey, you should talk about us, or you need to meet these people, how are you going to decide who you communicate with, and then how do you maintain that organicness of what you're doing?
It's a great question, man. I think...
So it doesn't feel commercial in a sense, you know what I mean? Like, if we talk to this person, we might get a sponsor. When that happens, does this change its mission?
No.
And I don't know.
No. I don't think the mission ever changes. I think, again, I said that, and in my head, I'm like, this thing is so dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's already changed.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to go around and, like, get in arguments with, like, hardcore right-wing people just to have it and to prove that we could talk, right? We're so far away from that already. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't care to do that anymore, you know? It was a time, like you brought up the pandemic, it was a time, and especially for me, and it's not a poor me thing, I spent a lot of time isolated from my family, from everything else, because of when I got sick. I got sick at the end of January 2020.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was no test, there was no anything, you know? The other part of this story is, it's this guy, right? And he travels around in his motorhome with his dog, and he fly fishes, and now he plays pickleball, and he does things. He just meets people along the way to tell their story, kind of thing, right? But I'm also doing things like last year we went to the Fall River Hatchery, and as a thank you, we took the food you make, and we brought a chef, and we stocked 200,000 fish by helicopter in the Alpine Lakes, right? Yeah. So there's nothing, we're not raising money to do that, right? That's a thank you to these guys. I fish a lot, and I appreciate hatcheries. I understand what they do. And the Department of Fish and Game, or the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, I'm not mad at those guys like a lot of people are, right? I'm thankful for this stuff. So it was a cool way to go say thanks, right? Yeah. So part of what I'm doing is driving around doing what's good for my mental health.
Yeah.
And you see when I'm walking around with my dog and talking to people, that's good for me. You know what I mean? And to go pay it forward a little bit and thank these guys and provide some food. That's all we did. We provided food for 13 biologists who worked their tail off for 48 hours straight to stock all these fish everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So it is, I'm getting away from your question because I'm kind of forgetting, especially because you had a 2-part deal. Go ahead.
But like, you can't script that. Like, to me, you know, if we were to sit down and go, what are we going to do?
Right.
How are we going to go do this? I like, you know, fish hatchery, dropping, it wouldn't even show up on a piece of paper. So there's something that the organic nature of it is inherent, like what you just said.
Right.
You know?
So do we have plans to do things? Absolutely. There's a gentleman that Michael knows in Simi Valley.
Oh, yeah,
He's been working with the Latinx community forever, and I would use his name right now, but we're going to hang on to that a little bit just to see if we can get there. Guy's incredible. Would I love to plan that out? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So there's certain
some
targets that
anchors
have to
that-
do
yeah,
with
right.
community health, and those are bucket list kind of people to talk to, right? You know what I mean? Right now and there's
He's
a ton
down
of
for
people
it?
out there. Yeah, right. There's a ton of people out there doing great work, and there's a ton of organizations out there doing great work. But we're really looking at small, like just people we're meeting.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people you can find that are doing cool stuff. Lauren Siegel's one of them. You know, we're going to sit with Lauren in an organization called Give a Beat, and we're going to do a venture with her. We just met Josh at the Hook. Like, I've known Josh for years. You've met him once. You met him the other day. We're going to take, you know, wounded warriors out fishing. We're going to start a program there called On the Mend. You know, so there are things we're planning.
Yeah.
But there's also this variable of like, I'm just going to go drive around and see what I can find.
Yeah.
And I think that those are the things that, especially fiscally for us, right? On this little small level, these things we can do to help people, you know?
Yeah.
So it has to stay like that for a while. We can't plan these big things at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. We have to, like, not be grandiose with it. We can't, like, we're not, whatever, Red Cross or Patagonia, right?
Right.
We're just trying to get some.
Just 2 dudes.
Yeah, just trying to take care of our own mental health. And,
Yeah.
you know.
And I think that's part of the story, right? It's, we're going to sell hoodies, we're going to donate money to this thing, but part of that story is it's just me. I just drive around and it's good for me. I'm a people person. In that period of time where I had to be locked down, and everyone bitches about being locked down.
Yeah, right.
They have no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some do.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It was hard.
Yeah.
So I need this.
It was easier for me. Right?
Yeah, right,
You know, like,
right.
Like, that doesn't bother me, like, as much.
Right.
Just, like, in solitude, you know?
Right. Right.
What have been some of the most surprising or impactful stories you've encountered while traveling and talking to people across the country?
Can we back up? I think you had a second part to the question. Did we get it?
Well, the second part was how do you maintain the integrity of what you're doing? As you're trying to decide, as big a neighborhood grows and you gain popularity, and then all of a sudden, instead of you finding the unique stories, people are saying, hey, they're trying to connect you with people. And that organicness of finding them is now not part of the component. How will you pick and choose if you even allow that in?
No,
will it always be 100% that you too will find the content that you want to?
No. Right? We're hoping. We talked about this before about the website. Like, hey, if you know somebody doing something, great. But there's a vetting process there, right, Scott? And it's like, it's the book you turned me on to, The Tribe.
Got it.
Right? And the idea that it's only a tribe if you literally exclude people, right?
Yes.
Like, not everybody can be part of your tribe.
No.
And that's all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there is that sort of, for lack of a better word, a vetting process, right? There is going to be, hopefully in the future, a way that we're going to have to weed through some of that.
Yeah.
Because I hope that people participate and give us names and people doing things. But you're going to always have to look into that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
We
it just
want-
opens up so many paths.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see, like, the question's good because like, you think about it, you're like, oh man, which ones do you choose? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And we're living this thing right now where it's like, gosh, hopefully this works. And that's a problem I want to have, right? Is how you sort through all these cool
Right,
things.
right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But right now, we're just going out there and finding stuff. And I've already had people come to me, hey, you should talk to so-and-so. You should go do this. And so we're kind of figuring that process out. But this is all new, right?
There's a bunch of people.
Oh, sorry, you finish up.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of people like Luis who I've worked with in the past. Like part of my past is coming in through getting fed up with what I was doing, realizing that part of what I did needed to be kind of given back to others, kind of needed to be not just about me, not just about Michael, and started doing nonprofit work. Ended up in design school, starting a nonprofit, and building in something that it took from a lot of my different experiences before. And so through that path, I met a lot of really cool people. A lot of people kind of talk shit about Los Angeles and like what a vapid place it is. And I met the fucking coolest people I've met in my life in Los Angeles, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like touching, going back and trying to like reconnect with some of the people that changed my life, that made me like go, oh yeah, that's what I want to follow. Not necessarily like whatever, just like get rich quick, not ever, you know. So
Yeah.
so there's threads that come back. Like if I look back on a lot of my life, the moments that kind of opened up new paths were when I was just like, they were either like something fucking went wrong and it was just like, Jesus Christ.
There's a lot of
like
those.
left turn, right? That kind of thing. I mean, I hope as I get older, I don't have to, not everything has to be a nuclear explosion for me to make a decision, but there's enough of that, that kind of tipped me in different places. And I don't know how to honor that, but there's a lot of people on the way that have like shown me something that was like really fucking morally and just cool. Not in a like pious, like where, this probably sounds dickish, but there's a type of kind of person that's just like, and I'm just really good and I just do good things. It was like people that were broken, people that were beat the fuck down, and through their own process, I came to this type of thing that was like, oh yeah, I got to be about something else than just me, whether that's like ex-gang leaders or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's something that tips them into it rather than just like I woke up and I just knew I needed to be a good person. And so like, I don't know, I tend towards like relating to and also just being drawn to those kind of like broken, people that have found a path that's like real and alive. And so,
yeah, it's that's interesting you said that. It's what's the word I want?
Somebody called it like like
comfortable
wounded healers, like people
yeah.
like, but not people that are like I always wanted to be, but people that are like, I'm so broken myself, I need to.
But there's
try
that
it
attraction.
back,
It's
right?
familiar,
Like,
right? It's like I get it.
And it's just
and
honest.
you have empathy and you
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Totally.
You have, like,
Right.
There's a connection there.
Right.
Would you ever envision Big Neighborhood getting to a point where you would have others doing this work?
I think that
under
there's
the
a
work.
lot of work that we would love to have other people do. And I'm going to,
Yeah, totally.
but this right here is what I want out of this.
Yeah.
The money, this isn't about money for me. This is about starting a company with a conscience and providing jobs and just showing my kids and everyone else. You can have them. When's enough, right? Like when is enough?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this whole thing for me has been the conversation. It's always been about the conversation. I don't even care. I think we were joking around. I don't care about the answers. You know what I mean? Like I just want to talk. So no. But as a company, absolutely.
I ask it because obviously we're in I'll say we're in a bubble. So we're out on the West Coast, all of us.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff going on in a lot of places.
Oh, interesting.
And so how do you, is the mission, I would assume there's some concentric circle that eventually just keeps growing on the distance the RV will travel.
It's interesting.
But there's a lot of areas that aren't being touched, and I would imagine, especially for you, having known you and knowing how you like to communicate and connect with people, that staying within a certain geographic region, although you'll find different opinions. Sorry, going into as you get farther and farther away from where we're at.
Yeah.
On the West Coast, you're going to find even more intriguing and interesting and different.
So right now, like we've spent a year and a half traveling around looking at this thing, seeing if this was a feasible thing, right? Designing things, looking at hoodies, just what kind of hoodie. We never bought. I'm not a fashion guy. I don't know about clothes. You know what I mean? I know what I put on. I go, that feels good, right? So we spent all this time doing this thing. But the dream has always been like, oh, we could do all 50 states, right?
Okay.
Like we'll go to 50 states and we'll do this thing. We're like, God, like we'd have to do like 5 a year. You know what I mean? So then it was like, okay, well, maybe the dream's a little much. That's why it's a dream.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that we started it where we started it for a couple reasons. And one of the most important reasons is it's close to Michael. Yeah. I don't want to do this without him. Right. And it was close to him. And Hood River made sense. And the idea of a neighbor hoodie, in Hood River, and then the Hood River hoodie, and it just kind of all made sense. And then we started going to Hood River, and it's such a fucking cool town. Yeah. And there's doers there. Mm-hmm. There's people there doing good for that community. There's an organization there called Next Door, and they do, and so that made sense to start there, right? We can't go all over the place because we still have to get a store opened online, right? We have to get some things done. But yeah, the dream would be to go everywhere. As far as other people doing this stuff, yeah, 100%. Michael needs help, on the website and just putting product in and this kind of thing. And yeah, it'd be great to have somebody come set cameras and stuff up, right? So I could just sit in the room like you did and take a nap, right?
So nice.
The other thing,
you know what I mean? Though? So, but that's a company, right? Right now we're just two guys with a dream.
But there would never be a satellite version of YouTube
I don't know.
somewhere else on the East Coast
brilliant,
doing
right?
the actual
What if it was
interviewing.
in Europe? Why would it have to be here? Right? Like there's a great stuff in Portugal with like drug addiction and things like that. How great would that be? I don't know.
But the vision is it's always YouTube.
We're going to be in,
I'd say less, for sure.
100%.
Like, Joe's the more kind of the one roaming.
I'm the dreamer.
The connector.
I'm too introverted. I don't like this part of it. You know what I mean? I'm doing it because I think it's important, to talk about it. But
and because he can look at Captain Sensible's ass.
Exactly.
That's
and
why.
it's not, so, but this isn't like who I am. So, so it's good to have other people in the mix, but I'm good at the back end and kind of figuring stuff out and the Mount hoodies, the neighbor hoodies, the blah, blah, blah. And applying design and storytelling to things and trying craft narratives that work. And so sort of I'll be doing my stuff the whole time. I just won't be on camera.
Got it.
Every time. You know what I mean?
Right, and there's Vaughn, who I'd love to take on the road with me. As a kid, I love this. Vaughn, I love you. You know what I mean? There's Riley Sullivan, who I want to bring her out and tell her story. She's a wonderful person. So I want a revolving cast of characters.
Yeah, perfect.
You know what I mean? I want you on the road. Let's go talk pickleball and barbecue. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's talk what you're doing. I want to be with Michael. I want to have my son come with me. My daughter's done this with me. My wife's come on 3 of them. You know what I mean? I want a revolving cast of characters. I think that would be, it's too much to ask one person to go do something like this when you just have a dream.
Yeah.
Right? But it'd be nice to have that revolving cast of people it's our tribe. We did a few episodes of There Goes the Neighborhood. Okay. And it was just podcasts with people I grew up with. Right. Steve Wagner and Frank and Tim Lovis and Jody and Tim Connolly and Scott Underhill and Gabrielle. And we did these things just so that we could use this so people could understand who the fuck we are. Yeah. Through that tribe that we've sort of been a part of. So I don't know about okay, you got Texas and I got this, or what if it was cool enough that there was some kid in Texas that saw what we were doing. He wanted to do it. Would we sanction it? Absolutely.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was.
Yeah,
getting.
that would be a blast, wouldn't it? You just have people satelliting this thing on their own. 100%.
I mean, I think the big neighbor thing has to be about expanding the neighborhood, right? Making the table bigger,
Right.
And so I mean, even from Portland, which is this like purple bubble to Hood River, there's a continuum there, like of different kinds of neighborhoods, you know, and stuff. So it's not just, you know, it's interesting.
It's a great question, Scott.
Totally.
That's the dream, right? You get so many people involved and they're doing this thing and they believe in what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How that happens, I have no clue.
Right.
Other than things that I'm social media and just content and putting things out there and have people go, that's kind of fun. We could do that here. There's a guy here that does this cool thing. I'd send this in.
Yeah.
It'd be rad to put that through a blog or something on our website to like, hey, if you're doing something like this, let us know.
But if it for sure just goes to people we know, you know, like, or things that we're comfortable with, then we're not doing it right. You know,
Right.
It may be a good way to start and sort of like
It's a good point.
get our feet under it, but it can't. Otherwise, it's just like our neighborhood. You know,
Yeah.
like, and we need it to be.
It's true.
It needs to get bigger.
More. Yeah.
There's gonna be people that hate this,
Yeah.
right? There's gonna be good. That's a good thing. That's okay.
Not in the tribe.
But there's gonna be people out there that go, "Oh, that's cool. I could do that," and that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that originally when we met the first time in Cannon Beach about the idea of what if we didn't trademark anything? We just left it open and anybody could do this.
Yeah.
You know, and then our attorney let us know that was a bad idea. but the point was
That was my idea.
But the point was like that's great.
Yeah.
What if there's another company out there that does this kind of that?
Sure.
This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of like just following
You
these
know?
sort of like open protocols and like, you know, it's this whole, I don't know, it's a whole kind of movement away from anti-copyright stuff and like open source software and things like that. And I just like, what a cool place to do that. There's a lot of people doing that with publishing, a lot of people looking at different ways of like ownership and copyright, things like that. Of course, a copyright attorney isn't going to like that stuff, but I think it's interesting to think about like how do you make things more inclusive? How do you like if you're really about it, it's worth like talking about it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the communicating with people, it doesn't have to be a trademarked
Right.
communicate.
right.
If 50 things spun off, and there were just people connecting with more people,
That's a win.
Everybody wins.
That's
Yeah,
a win.
That's
Exactly.
a global win.
100%.
At a core
Yeah.
level.
100%. you know,
Copywriting it feels odd. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay, copywriting conversation or something.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we're not saying that. We're talking about the neighborhoodies. We're talking about a few things that generate income to be able to continue to do
Sure.
what we're doing and give back, right? But the ethos of that is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah.
Now you've answered this, I believe, but I'm just curious if there might be maybe a different story or you want to expand on it. But what have been some of the most surprising or impactful stories you've encountered while traveling and talking to people across?
I
I don't want to say the country, but the West Coast.
Can I just say, well, like,
Yeah.
I would love you to talk about the dude in Montana, like the beginning of this, like when you met the guy in the fly shop in
Yeah.
Montana, and there was like, it was almost a little bit like odd, you know,
Yeah.
but like,
I just went and saw him.
yeah. I mean, that like to me, that's
It really is,
a
and
great part of it.
you know, the woman at the hatchery makes sense as to donate money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the guy you're talking about is really what started it.
Right.
I don't want to talk about it though. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's like one of my favorite. It made me go like,
that
yeah,
one's
dude, I'll do
personal.
That one's
No, I'm
top
just-
secret.
it's not. It's. I went out there to fish because I was healing, and this is it's. I went into a fly shop. I had a mask on. We're talking June of 2020 ish, maybe July. I don't remember. It was something like that because I went back and saw. So it was like June. I think I was, and I was by myself, and I went in with a mask on. And this is a little town called Ennis, Montana, and it's on the Madison River, sort of maybe 45 minutes from West Yellowstone, down in the valley there. Beautiful. And I walked in and I said, and I had a mask on. He goes, "Oh, sorry, I don't have a mask." And I said, "Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You should be worried about me. I'm wearing the mask for you. You know, I'm coming in from California and we're running hot out there right now. You know, this is not good." And he was like, "Oh yeah." And so he was very cool. We're definitely very different, right? We live in different places. We're probably not aligned politically. But we probably got in a 2-hour conversation that spanned everything from healthcare to guns to, to COVID. I remember one of the things he said to me was he didn't think COVID was real. And then I told him my experience.
Yeah.
And I told him that it's not real. It's not your reality.
Yeah.
But it's real because we're living this stuff. And we ended up becoming friends. And based on this whole conversation that I had with him on things that you would never talk to people about. You would never talk. You're not going to go to a little town in Montana and start talking guns and religion. You know, we got into a big conversation about assault rifles. The guy lives in a little town, probably owns who knows how many of them. You know what I mean? But explaining to him that where I come from in San Diego or Orange County, we don't have herds to protect.
Yeah.
You know, he's explaining to me about how he's got to protect his cattle and different things, from wolves and grizzly bears, and you can't miss. So, okay, an AR makes sense. You know what I mean? You don't want to miss. You put enough rounds over there, So that was a really meaningful conversation I had with him. I see that guy once or twice a year still.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? So, and it was really important for me to understand that I could go into these places where people are living a totally different reality than us. It's not even close, and we're not enemies, right? It's not us and them. So that was one of those moments. And then obviously Tom Cohn in Eureka.
Yeah.
He texts me probably 4 or 5. I love this guy. He texts me all the time still. He's a great guy. And then, and I could go on and on. The guys at the hatchery, you went there with me.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're great guys, man. Linda and Sylvia, I see them. So it's almost, Scott, it's almost like a majority of the people we're doing and meeting kind of fall into that. They all mean something, right?
Sure.
Or Tom, the first thing he gave me was, I've known the guy for like 10 minutes. And he goes into his van and he goes, "Hey, a guy made this for me and I knew that I would meet the man that needed to have it." And okay, and he brought out this sign and it had like the eagle on it and the stars and stripes. And it said, "Everybody has a story. I just want to hear it."
Oh, that's rad.
And he handed it to me. And I was like, "Oh, dude, that's rad." So I still have that thing in my motorhome.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? So they're all kind of important, right?
Yeah.
The woman on the Metoliath, that group of people. The only mistake I made there was I didn't get her number, and I have not been able to find out what that organization is since.
Oh, no.
Right. And I've looked several times, but I'm going to find it.
Okay.
Is that Sarge?
No, and then there's Sarge. Just goes on and on, right?
Yeah,
there's people, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere, man. And they have great stories to tell, and everybody's been through something.
Sure.
So
in a world where most businesses focus on profit, you've chosen to donate 50% of your profits to organizations you meet. What challenges do you expect to have in maintaining that commitment?
I'm going to go first. And I'm going to let you go. Transparency, right? Yeah, I'm traveling around in a motorhome, and it's a big motorhome, and it's this is not. I don't want people to think that we have some company that is selling hoodies so that I can afford to travel around in my retirement in a motorhome fly fishing.
Yeah.
Right. We're very clear. Transparency is the whole thing, Scott. It's the whole thing in my brain. There's 50% is a lot to give away. It is. Yeah. But I think it's the right thing to do. And I think that if we do this right and we're honest about it, I told Michael from the very beginning, if we're honest, we're fine. If we're honest about it, we're fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing about what we're doing that is bad. Right? There's no angle anyone can come at us.
Yeah.
We're not site. I'm not trying to find people to incite things or call them out. Or I'm not.
Yeah, no, you're-
I'm not diagnosing. They're talking about meds. I'm not. We're just finding people doing cool stuff, and we're trying to put a highlighter on it and let people see that people out there need help, and they don't need a ton. But I think anytime you're giving that kind of money away, right? 50% of nothing's really easy to give away, right?
Super easy right now.
Right.
I'll be real transparent.
Yeah, right. But I think that for people to trust it, there's a lot of companies out there, right? That we give this and we donate here. There's no path to find out how that gets donated, or when, or what. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's different like corporate structures
Right.
and stuff that
Right.
require different things. But yeah,
So transparency is everything for us. That we want to be completely 100% transparent about what we bring in and what we give away.
Got it.
And that other 50% is hopefully going to build a company and enable us to keep traveling around and doing stuff.
Yeah.
But that 50% will be given away.
yeah. I think for me, this talks about a little bit why I wanted to do this too. Is like, I talked about starting the nonprofit, and that came out of like, where am I going with all this stuff? Went to design school because I just wanted to make bitchin' album covers, And I was like, oh, okay,
Rad.
wait, I might work for Procter and Gamble or Jesus Christ, that's far away from what I was thinking I was going to be doing, But worked in nonprofit. I ran a nonprofit, had built a board, fundraised, worked with kids in the correctional facilities or kids coming out of the correctional facilities mainly. Worked with adjacent organizations that were doing the work in there, mostly with poetry or different creative endeavors. And I started going like, here's jobs that are going on and working, things you could do in the creative industries. That's another story. But all I did was try to beg people give me money to be able to print these things because I believed in the idea. I started thinking about working. I started working with another group named Common, who were like, we're brand and advertising guys, and we're going to start applying that thinking to nonprofit work, and so I started working. I did a lot of really cool stuff. They're still doing amazing shit, but it's like another business model that is looking at like, how do we take our expertise and apply it differently without just going and begging people for money? Like, can you give us $20 or can you give us $100? Can I catch you in for, $250? It's the holidays. It's exhausting, man. And it's like I'm not cut out for that.
Yeah.
Like I did it and I did that for 10 years, but the aligning kind of a business with an idea, with something that gives back, like it's different. It's a much different thing. It's sort of like dealing just building a good business first. And then if the business works, if the idea works, there's money to throw off, but it's not like going around and going, please give us some money to make this work. And I love people doing that work.
Sure.
It's like thankless. It is long hours and a lot of, it's like a commitment that I had for a long time. But where I am in my life, I think it aligns with just like making cool things that people want, right?
Yeah.
As well, and then throwing off some value to others, and so it's been this process that I've gone through. And when we started talking about it, I was like, that's the place where I want to do this, is like, let's build a cool company that's doing something. And I just wanted to work with Joe. I mean,
and expand on that. Like the idea of setting up a nonprofit was insane, right? Because we would have to go ask for money, then to go find people to help.
Yeah.
Right. You can't, that's hard to get a grant for.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't work as a nonprofit, really, an idea. But for me personally, having run several businesses, have my own business, a family full of people that we own our own businesses, it seemed really important to like, it's okay to have a business.
Yeah, totally.
And not be greedy, right? Like it's okay. Yeah. When's enough? And the idea of showing my kids that start your own business, but you can hire people, you can bring people in, and those people should be able to make a living. We even discussed at one point, what if this thing blew up, right? would it be smart to put in a cap for how much we could take out? Right? Like, I don't need $50 million.
Right,
I am
it's
56
transparency,
years
right?
old.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought you were almost 57.
Thought we went
well,
through
we
that
grabbed
today.
you because of your maturity and age to do this with us. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I don't care about that. What I care about is it would be so cool to have a business that you could employ people, they could do this thing, and then at one point you stop taking money out of it. Like you bleed the thing dry, right? And everyone's making, just enough to rent a house and get by. That's not. I don't want to be a part of that.
But it's called, it's a rough road, but it's also cool. Like to think about our kids or our friends being part of it, and just that's
Your daughters, my daughter,
Yeah.
my son, even it's you can build a company, and I've done this. You've worked with me at a different company.
Yeah.
We grew that company to almost $40 million, right?
Yeah.
And it just got bled dry, right? It didn't have to.
Yeah.
It didn't have to. That person had plenty of money,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want that in my life. So this structure made sense. That's a social purpose corporation where even if he and I decide one day this thing is great, we're going to pass it on to someone else to run. I might still go around and do a podcast and everything. We're not sucking money out of it, but we determine. No one can, board of directors, no one, shareholders, they can't come in and go, 50% is too much, right? We still have that ability to keep the premise of what we're doing, the promise to give this money back. And that's important.
Yeah, there's some new kind of corporate structures that you can put in. You can make the benefit of the greater good a part of your charter. So like no matter what, people can't come in and go, you've got to make it the bottom line. You got to cut this. You got to do this. You're like, no, but it's part of the
what we do.
founding documents to say that's baked in, and it's really interesting. It gets into legal stuff, but it's very it's cool to see happening, and it feels like the right time with it.
Yeah.
And so
So I'm going to ask a question, and hopefully it's not too convoluted, but so given your experience in both the nonprofit and entrepreneurial worlds, how do you balance growing a business with the desire to create meaningful social impact? So, and I'm going to ask a separate part of this question, which is because you have two businesses in a sense. One is helping and connecting and the podcasting and sharing that information, and the other is hoodies that generate revenue. Mm-hmm. If one takes off and the other doesn't, where do you see this going? If you don't sell any hoodies, but you get amazing activity via social or video, or on the flip side,
I think it would be the flip side, right?
but we don't know.
Who wants to hear me talk? But the hoodies might work, right? So that's a win. If we're selling hoodies, we're donating money.
yeah.
If we're doing a podcast that's working, we're donating money.
Yeah.
So would it be great to have them both run down the freeway together naked? That'd be awesome,
Yeah.
right? But is there a chance that nobody gives a shit what I have to say? Sure.
But I guess my question would be more about, since the giving piece is tied to the hoodie sales, if the podcast blows up and the hoodies don't sell, will there be another component that you would explore for giving?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, obviously sharing the message is giving.
So
and connecting with those people.
I think
Right.
right now we have two corporations. We have Big Neighborhood Media, LLC, and then we have Big Neighborhood Apparel, which is an SPC. It's a social purpose corporation. It's
That's what I was
corp,
talking about.
right? We're going to donate 50% of the proceeds we make. Ideally, right now it's all running under one. Right?
Yeah.
It's one website, one thing, right? And ideally for me, that's how it would go. I think to have two corporations, it gets a little weird. And then, do you donate 50%? Here, what if this one makes 10 million and this one makes $1 million, but this is the one you're donating from, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the commitment is to donate 50% of the proceeds from Big Neighborhood, period. You know, and obviously, I don't even know that we've had that conversation necessarily. We probably
what
will. We probably will. Yeah, that'd be so rad.
Yeah, no, that
But because
Right.
I see the hoodies and the apparel stuff and just being fun. You know, there's a printer out in New York. We were talking about Spectrum printing and just doing some things. I think that that's got a real shot if we can continue to put product out there and be to work sort of prolifically with that, right? I don't know that a podcast does anything for us other than it's a commercial, right? I get to travel around and talk to people, and I don't know. I like them linked together more than I do two separate companies.
Sure.
But originally when we did this, it seemed smart to have one and then the other, you know?
it's probably a harder lift to make a podcast that generates $10 million than it is to, you know, you have some breakout shit, like, but that's like exceptional. Then do something that almost everybody has. My mom has a hoodie. She could never listen to a podcast in her life, you know? Yep.
Yeah, I don't. The podcast is the guilty pleasure, right? It's the conversation I want. I can run around. I can run around and sell things. I've been selling my whole life, right? I can run around and sell hoodies and do it if I had to. I probably get, but the conversation is really important to me. The meeting of people, and just traveling around. I'm 56 years old again. Like, right? Like, how much time do I have to really go do this stuff? You know, and functionally, like physically, everything. Go out there and fish and do what we're doing. We play golf and travel around and play pickleball and do. I don't know how many years I have of that, right? So this is sort of the part that's almost we don't have to buy ad space, right?
Yeah.
We can create this stuff. A little bit of help from you at one point for the social media side. We can create this. This is the thing that's going to help us.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Do you sell a podcast one day? I don't even think about that. I think about hoodies and I think about shirts and I think about these people I'm meeting and how I can generate some sort of income to help them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just like a perfect medium for it, conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like,
This gives me the ability to go meet these people and sit down and say, tell us what you're doing. We're putting a highlighter on the zit, right?
Yeah.
It's like, tell us what you do. So this is the means to the end, you know?
Yep.
So I don't know, Scott. I don't think of them as separate things anymore. I did.
Yeah.
When we first started this, I'm going to do a podcast and we'll sell these things. And the more Michael and I work together, they're just kind of the same thing. It's this whole way of doing business now, right?
Yeah.
Through social media and different things like that. And so I don't see them as different things anymore.
Okay.
I don't know if you do.
I mean, and the transparency is just, we're going to build some more of that, like how we do that on the website, how we just let people know what's going on, you know, and some of it will be through blog and social media, but it'll be clear what we're doing, you know?
Is that an answer or no?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an answer.
Well,
yes.
I mean, I just,
It is.
Is it a good answer?
I hadn't thought about it. We hadn't even talked about it. You know what I mean? So it's a good question, but I just tell you my opinion, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here. What lessons have you learned from the communities and the individuals you've interacted with, and how have these lessons shaped Big Neighborhood's direction?
Wow.
I feel like it's a little early to say that, but I think some of like what Joe just described in Annis Montana is part of it, you know, sort of like that's how I read it. But I think there's a lot of like potential and a lot of ideas that we have. This is my take, you know.
No, I think you're right. I think it is. Or part of it is we've kept our cards kind of close to our chest too for a while here, right? Because we didn't want to lose it as a trademark stuff or whatever it might be. Neighborhoodies is clever, right? We don't want to lose that. You know what I mean? That's good stuff. So, but will you ask it again?
Well,
Because I have an answer.
But I think I will ask it again.
Yeah.
I think you've done a lot of interacting and engaging with
Right.
people.
I have an
even
answer.
though that the business isn't,
Right.
you know, maybe
Right.
have launched.
Right.
You've done a lot. So
I have.
The question is, what lessons have you learned from the communities and the individuals you've interacted with, and how have these lessons shaped Big Neighborhood's direction?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you have made pivots.
100%. And I don't, it's interesting, right? Like the idea of learning a lesson, I don't know that that's how I would say it, right? But I've definitely, once we went into sort of, this is really, like, once we've gone sort of towards that idea of community health and mental health and gotten away from the idea of just talking to people
Yes.
actually had some purpose here.
Yeah.
I have learned there are so many people out there that do such cool shit for nothing, right?
Yeah.
And they're out there and they're everywhere. They're everywhere, man. So I've really learned, and the lessons have been like, it's okay to talk about my vulnerabilities, right? It's okay to talk about my anxiety and my depression and things like that, and hook up with these people. And there's been times I've had to talk about my son, you know, and that's his story to tell. So I don't go too deep into it, right?
Yeah.
He's going to come on one day with me and we'll talk about some of it. But to sort of understand that people are in those places and we're not different. We're like, a lot of us are sharing the same weird space, you know, when it comes to watching someone hurt or hurting.
Well, it's interesting, you know, as I'm listening to you, and and this might be too much of a tangent, but
It's all right.
I'm listening to this book on coaching, and the guy teaches you really about how to ask questions, and then what the follow-up question is, and what the follow-up question is. But to me, like, if the biggest thing that came out of this was you taught people how to go knock on a guy's van door and have a conversation with him and say, like, instead of looking at him like, what the fuck is this random guy doing in this van? He must be some nut job. And it turns out there's who knows how many million people, because we're all different, right? Depending on if you're in a Tesla or you're in a 20-year-old car that looks like it's beat up.
Hey,
like,
man.
to be able to go and to spark that conversation and not necessarily.
I hope to have 100 of these scenarios soon, but the lesson would be to not judge the book, right?
Well, that's what I was
Right.
getting at.
Like,
book by its cover.
when I looked at Tom, if you would have put Tom in front of me in 2021 in that van, I'd have never talked to him.
Yes.
And that's just my shit.
Yeah.
That's not him. That's the van. That looks like that thing I don't want to be a part of.
Right.
Right? Without naming names or movements or anything. You know what I'm talking about, and people will probably get there. But to actually sit down with this man and bring my wife to his house and sit down and listen, and we do not align on a lot of things, he and I. Politically, socially, just a lot of stuff. He's had a different life, right? I'm glad that I took the time to go do that, because he's a wonderful guy, man. You know, and it's okay to be different than each other. We don't all have to be the same and agree on shit, right? And I think that's the lesson too, right?
Great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that I'm past it. I don't care anymore what. I think your political beliefs and all this is the least interesting thing about your dreary ass. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, I just want to get to the other shit.
Well, and I think my own personal, when I see people, probably on social media, chatting about political things, I read it as they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
They're talking points that maybe somebody else shared, and they don't really even understand.
And we look at things different, right? Like, believe me, I left social media for 9 years because I sucked at it. You know what I mean? But
I'm making you do it.
yeah. The thing I really did this with my kids when they were young. We were in LA, and there's a bunch of people there, and they're homeless and this and that. And rather than make that judgment, everybody's got a story, right? And I'm not going to judge it.
Sure.
Right? So Tom's van, on the surface level, he catches a lot of shit. If you listen to the podcast when I put it out, people call him names and throw shit at him. And this is a guy that came back from Vietnam that had people throwing feces on him when he got back and shit. So now he's taking it again, right?
Yeah.
And so the sort of compassion I have of this guy to still go out there and help, right? I don't care what his beliefs are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's doing the good work. What he does personally, I don't care. You know, so that was a big thing for me, to let go of some of that shit and just deal with people as people. And everyone's got a story, you know?
Yeah.
And to treat people that way was it was good for me.
Well, and I think, we were joking about this in the car when I mentioned to you about the code word chimichurri and using it as because I had heard about it on some other podcast where a speaker was referencing it as a word that her cohort would say to keep her in check. It was like
Right.
a code word, right?
Right.
But it would be interesting if we could get to a point where there was, whether it was a word or a phrase that people used to connect to somebody that maybe they weren't comfortable having that conversation.
Oh, rad.
And if that could be generated, that would be just from a life thing. Like,
Yeah, for
to
sure.
be able to say that, like,
For sure.
they're not coming to me in anger or in confrontation.
Right.
They want to actually connect.
Yeah.
At least
Pineapple.
Right?
Yeah. But
I don't
there's
know
a
if-
curiosity in that. Like,
Chimichurri-
yeah, right.
I don't know if there's anything better than chimichurri. It's just so good.
I did a podcast with these two girls that grew up in a cult.
Yeah.
Right. And so before we started, I wasn't sure what I could say or do. Right. And I was like, okay, we need a safe word. Right.
you
And
go.
I had this little box that had a mermaid on it. And so every time I said something, she just took the mermaid and threw it in the air. Right. And when it hit the table, I go, oh, okay. That was off. That was out of bounds. You know what I mean? So
Check, please.
Yeah, I mean, and then we're human, you know. Like this stuff isn't that easy to like. There's an ideal for this, and
Yeah.
then there's like a reality sometimes, you know, where
Sure.
you're just like, damn, I don't want to deal with that. And there's gonna be conversations where it'd be like absolutely fucking not. You know what I mean? Like for me, I'm just like, there's certain things around my daughter and around different things that I'm not willing to put out into the world, right? So it's just like the balance, man. It like, yeah, when you start thinking about it, you're like, what about this and what about those shit, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that approach, I can't even think of like what a better place things would be if you were just like, hey man, what's going on with you?
Right.
Instead of fucking like, whoa,
Like, what's your
you know,
deal?
like, yeah, what's up? Yeah, yeah.
that's what I said.
Right.
What's
And
your deal, man?
yeah. Yeah, and there's not that many people that can do that like fluidly and easily and just
Yeah.
be like and just be like like what's like, you know, we're in a weird place in this country. So
But if we could get to that point where that, whatever that phrase is,
yeah.
and if it's what's your deal, or, you know, tell me more about you, like
Yeah.
where
Sure.
people might actually just engage with each other.
I
and
think
get,
with
and
the
get
right-
beyond the like all whatever
Yeah, the
spinning in their
polarities,
head,
the
like
binaries.
that
Yep.
Trumper or that
Yep.
you know
Right.
that liberal person or
Right.
whatever
Right.
that thing. Like they're
yeah.
not even having a conversation to find out anything about that person. They've just preconceived everything about them.
And I think
Yeah.
what I'm saying, it's just easier, right? Like it's easier to have it like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have to think about that. I
Right.
don't have to worry about that. And like, so like the harder thing is to knock on the door and go,
1000%,
hey man, you want to sit
right?
down? You know, like that's a
And ditch
way different thing.
and ditch everything, right? Put all your preconceived bullshit and your hangups behind you, and just listen to this guy tell his story, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard
Yeah.
for people. It is.
Well, and when you're more inclined to be introverted, which
Right.
I was, and I've spent my whole life trying to get out of
Right.
that, and I have my own ways of trying to engage people because I do enjoy, like I cherish friendships, and I stay connected with people that I've worked with,
Me
that
too.
I've hung out with, and
I'm the same
because
way.
to me I value those things that with the people I've connected with, but it's
It's
you
work
when you're in a party or you're at a mixer and you're trying to get past the hey, I'm so and so and I do this, you know, like to learn something about them, and where you find some common ground, and then that conversation grows, and all of a sudden you're chatting with that person for 2.5 hours in a fly shop, or,
Right.
or at a mixer, or
Right.
at a birthday party or a wedding with somebody you never thought you'd. And all of a sudden you have so many things in common, or just find interest in what they have to share. I think that's
I had these almost like questions I would ask to feel people out, right? Meet people, they'd see Oliver. They don't care about me really, but they see Oliver and they'd be like, "So what are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I've been just traveling around. It's been a weird few years. I'm just trying to connect with people again."
yeah.
And then that next response, that whatever they gave me would really help me to understand if I needed to sit here longer and talk to them, or if we weren't going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? And it's getting easier and easier, I think, the farther we get away from the pandemic, for people to kind of loosen up and talk about stuff.
I feel like we are ramping up again with like the vitriol and
this election year. Yeah.
yeah. We're just.
I'm looking
in
forward
the
to
mix
going
of
out
it.
now.
Yeah, right. I
Well,
know.
and
Like
I
it's
am.
needed now. You know what I mean?
I'm looking forward right now in the next 60, 70 days to talk to people and just stay out. I think you can really, there's a lot of things when you talk to people, you can just kind of neutralize some of that shit energy. I
In
can.
person.
I really feel like I can sometimes. Sometimes, depending on the person, you're just not going to do anything. But it's an interesting time to get people to connect to people and just talk again and put all the shit aside. You know what I mean? And let's just talk.
Right.
It's the world's it's an interesting place, and the pandemic, I think, afforded some, obviously a lot of negatives with the health issues that occurred, but the remote work or remoteness of how people now live their lives, which I think there's a lot of pluses. I am now a beneficiary of the ability to be with you here right now and still work is for me is good for my mental health.
Yeah.
But I also think people can now be more isolated, and they don't have to go engage because it's like, oh, I can just get on a Zoom call and then I can be on my social feeds and they're not really. There's no direct human.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just gonna swap a battery real quick.
Go swap a battery. I feel like I'm in Boogie Nights.
Thirsty. I use smart water for my alcohol.
I feel like I'm in Boogie Nights right now when they ran out of film.
The porn is later.
Are you? Which one of you is Dirk Diggler?
We all follow Oliver's lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's way easier to isolate too. You know,
Yeah.
Pandemic wise, you can just work at home. You can do all that stuff. You can have less of the messy human interaction sometimes, and like that's not good for us. You can see it. You can see it in how people like. I always like look at how people drive. Like, man, like people forgot how to be cool to other people,
Civil.
or that there's other people on the road.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like there's a noticeable difference, and so there's been some benefits, but there's also it's done some weird damage to the culture, you know, and
Yeah. No, I think when you become, it's really easy to spout your mouth off on when you don't have to do it in front of somebody.
right.
And so I think that's, obviously social media has become a place where people like to do that type of stuff. And, there's good and there's bad with what's come of it. Obviously its original intention is
Yeah. I
probably
remember.
no longer there, but
I remember, in school, reading somebody's treatise on like how when we used to travel by train together, we had to sit and look at each other,
Yeah.
or like in public transportation, even the advent of the car changed a lot of things because you're like, I'm around you, but I'm not really around you, and I could just sit there and go, fuck, like you cut me out, blah, 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 but you're not right next to them. Like, you don't do that in the grocery store. You're like standing next to a person and go, fuck, you're in my fucking way, bro. Get out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and just all these little things that remove us from each other. I was like, wow, yeah, that feels
Right.
legitimately like what's going on here. And so this feels like the antidote to that.
that's cool.
And we want to have conversations, right? But we want it to be fun too, right? Like, we want to get out and have some. I mean, we have squirrels with ball gags on this table, right? Like, this thing should be fun, and get out and have a good time and talk to people and take all that angst out of shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you said that you don't do it in the grocery store. It's happening in the grocery stores now, right? You know what I mean?
Right,
It is
sometimes,
It is happening places, and people are pent up, and people are this and that. So it's like, it's crazy. I don't get a lot of that from people.
Well, it's funny like that. When you said it is happening at the grocery store, I flashed into that series called Beef,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it was like, although it's
It picked up on
comedic
all
and
that.
it's
Yeah.
there's so much real life in that.
Yeah.
and
Sure.
you see it.
But it's so funny. People tell me all the time, well, you're going to have this and people are going to be that. I'm getting, and maybe it's the way I'm coming to them, but I'm getting very little negative activity,
And
right?
I would say
don't get
people
much
don't want
negative
that, right?
energy.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's very easy for me to come into a place I've never been or go to the park over there where everyone's walking their dogs and just walk in and talk to people or whatever it is. And I'm not getting that negative energy.
Yeah.
And I don't think people want it in the grocery stores or in
Right.
And I think I think you talk to most people, they're like, Jesus, man, somebody just spit on that person for like where are we going with all this? You know.
So I mean, I'm encouraged by the whole thing that like I think that what we're doing, what I'm trying to do with Michael and this whole thing, I think it's really doable, right? I think that the hoodies are cool, and I think some of the artwork we're having is going to be fun. Whether maybe a squirrel on one, you never know. But I think that it's like almost a breath of fresh air, right? I meet people and they go, "What are you doing?" And I tell them what I'm doing. Like the woman you and I gave her a hoodie.
Yep.
You know, she kind of big leagued this on the pickleball court, but.
Well, that's because she's better than you.
No, I refuse. But I get so much positive from people, right?
Yeah.
So it's encouraging.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to keep trying to do this thing.
It's something that you're saying about like it's got to be fun. Like it also goes back to like we're not perfect either. Like we're not saints. We're not doctors. We're not trying to like solve the whole world's problems. But like I don't know, man. We can bring something to this and try. You know what I mean? There's going to be places where you just go, I'm out.
There's people
on
do
this. You know what I mean?
right.
Like we can't change everybody. Can't even, you know. Like
There's
just some
people
that
out
can.
there doing far better work than what we're doing. We're just trying to find them.
Exactly, and like and
You know?
highlight that and bring it forward and be like, there's people on all sides of everything that
Sure.
are doing really cool stuff, and that's what we want to focus on rather than the like divide. You know.
No, I think that's amazing. I want to make a pivot here
Okay,
and get into sustainability. And it seems like that's been a key focus for the apparel line and the creation of it. How do you ensure that the products align with your ethical values? And what challenges have you faced to this point?
It's a great question, Scott.
Yeah.
It is, man. I mean, ideally, yeah, I mean, I might even let Michael go at this for a second. I think that we have the right intentions. I don't know that to start the company off the way we want it to end up would be financially feasible. I don't think we could do it. I think we would price ourselves out of everything. But I think the goal for us is to get there. And I think if we're honest about it in the way that we're doing this thing, I think we can get there. But I'll let Michael go.
There's something like when I think about that, because yeah, you're right. Like we have our ideals, what we want to do, and where we're going to go. What we're like our North Stars with this. There was an interview with Yvonne Chenard from Patagonia, who was like, somebody's like, yeah, but like all of the apparel industry is like really, really messed up, and like why have you're trying to? And he's like, yeah, it's been going on forever. Like the whole world revolves around this thing, and he's like, we're trying, and his whole he was just like, I think you can tell from the way we think about things and the way we've done things for the last 20 years that we're doing our best. And he's like, we can't change the whole apparel industry by our positive intentions, but he's like, I hope you can just tell that we're trying, because it's like he's like, and we're being as transparent as we can and whatever, and it may take way beyond when I'm gone. And so and he proved that. He started doing that even when he passed on, right? Like it's just I don't know, there's something like you got to start somewhere. And so right now we're making all the decisions that we can with the information that we have, and we're always looking for, if anybody knows, new solutions for new printing techniques for different sourcing options and things like that. But we'll just be moving towards our ideal state where we're not doing a bunch of harm.
Yeah, I think that ideally, let's be real clear. We started this thing without wanting to we can't go broke, right? Mm-hmm. So we had to start this thing finding a printer that would do these things for us on demand. Mm-hmm. Well, that limits the hoodies we can get, the different brands, right? Yeah. So if we wanted to go a completely sustainable hoodie of some sort, we would have to buy those up front.
Got it.
And now that investment's a totally different thing, right? And now we're risking our family stuff. And so it's exactly what Michael just said. Like, we know what we want, right? We know where we want it made. We know that we want the material, the renewable stuff. We want something responsible. So we can start with the bags, right? Our bags are recycled ocean plastic, right? The postcards will be recycled paper. Like, we can do things right now. But to do the hoodie, we don't have that kind of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not gazillionaires that are out here going, hey, we're going to, blah, blah. We have to do this thing the way we have to do it. But the goal is, it's our goal, right? We want this sustainability. We see what's going on the planet. We know what we want, but we have to start somewhere. And we're hoping that people will work with us and trust us and watch the progress we make and come along with us so that we can get there.
Well, and I'd also imagine that if you, I'll just make up an example, but if you went out and bought 1,000 hoodies, because that's what you had to do to get that more sustainable product, that eventually is going to put a lot of pressure on the business.
Right.
They have to make different decisions.
That you don't want.
Right.
Right.
And I think that the print on demand's allowing you the freedom to
It's
maintain the
it's the
ethic
weird catch-22, right?
Right.
Do you print everything and get it and everything's sustainable and this and that, or do you focus on giving the money out to people?
Right.
And
Where
finding
is
the
the giving?
people.
Right.
So for us, the focus is the conversation and the people, right? Which means we have to get this hoodie and these shirts out in a way that it's a quality product, right?
Yeah.
And people like it and it's cool and it feels nice to wear and the whole thing, with the goal of like, oh, it'd be rad if everything was sustainable, like this whole thing was sustainable, right? Which we can't come out of the gun that way.
Yeah, but
We
and
can't
it's
come
not
out
the
of the gate.
focus, right? It's like
The focus is that person. It's
right.
Tom, it's Linda, it's Sylvia. That's the focus, right? So, but between he and I, we know what we want to do eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere, and what we need to start with is
the
having
sourcing
people
is like,
understand the story.
and the sourcing is like 40% recycled materials and stuff, and we'll just keep working. Out of the choices that we have, we've made the best decisions that are available currently, but it's not. We're not a sustainable clothing company right now. Like the
We'd love to be.
focus of sustainability is on the sustainability of the culture and having conversations. So it's like it's right up there, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. Like you have to make prioritize decisions.
I think if this thing went for 10 years and we look back and it did pretty well, I think the sustainable part of this is that the idea of a corporation that's got a moral responsibility to participate in their community, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I could lump in, oh, by the way, everything we sell is sustainable materials, I'm in.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, that corporate responsibility to other people and the community in which the money's coming out of is far more important to me at this moment.
And we're actively looking for better solutions and willing to pivot to those things and change them. And we know there's a lot of people that are doing incredible stuff in apparel. And so we were at the Friends with Benefits thing and bought one of those shirts of a woman who's just designing like zero waste clothing. So I have a T-shirt. I think
So
it's in the
cool.
other room, and there's no extra because we lose like 40% of the clothing of the textiles that is produced is cut away and thrown away. And she's just like figured out these ways to make shirts and different things, and it's just a zero waste product, and it doesn't, and it might not all be recycled, but it's like not throwing, so there's so many aspects to what is truly sustainable, especially, that industry is pretty, especially with the fast fashion stuff, it's pretty, it needs a lot of help. So we're going to do what we can as soon as we can. Yep.
So I had one last question, but I had, and this, I don't even know if this is a question, but as I keep going back to, if we could find a way to connect to people and find a way to they can communicate, and I started thinking, it's one thing to be able to just walk up to somebody, but not everybody's comfortable doing that. It'd be cool that maybe the hoodie or the big neighborhood name connected people.
Stands
And
for
when
something.
somebody saw it, they're like, hey, I want to go talk to that person because I follow that podcast, and maybe that's the icebreaker. And I think I've seen it because the dog becomes a vehicle. I went to the Billy Goat Tavern in Chicago where they did the Saturday Night Live skit, and I would get more people. It'd be like Billy Goat, because I grew up in Chicago, right?
Right,
I'm like, but now I have a way to communicate with that person. There's a bar in Long Beach called JoJo's. And if you wear a JoJo's T-shirt, everybody that's been to JoJo's,
Totally. And hopefully,
but it just gets a conversation from you would never talk to that person to hey.
and I think that's
you
what
know, like-
happens with. Sorry,
For us, it's the chairs.
it's the chairs. It
Yeah.
it represents
curiosity.
Just sitting down. It's like a simpler, like version of chairs.
Sure.
You know, they're not like radical chairs. They're not the newest camping chairs. They're like
the old beach chair.
reminiscent of an old thing of just like let's hang out. You know, like those are the kind of chairs you use at block parties. You know what I mean? And you just like pull
Well, it's
something
very
out of the garage.
right. It's very simple. Like the idea of like pre-cell phone, pre-everything. This is what we did. We sat in these chairs and we talked.
But
right?
I got to stop you guys for 1 second because the chairs are really important, and we haven't talked about them at all until this moment.
I know.
And they're not even on this
We're not
video
wearing them.
screen.
We're not wearing them.
And I think one of you should go grab something that has the chairs so
Okay.
we can share what we're talking about.
We'll
I'll do it.
We'll flash to it.
I can also cut a piece in
Yeah.
Okay.
when we edit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that's probably better.
Okay.
It's probably better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But
I just realized
but-
when we were talking about that he had that and I had this one.
But I think that it's important because
Yeah.
if the chairs are the symbolic piece that
We talked about this thing at the beginning, thinking like it's the tribe thing, right? Right? Like not everyone can be in the tribe, or it's not a tribe, right? So, but that idea of like being in the know, like oh, there's the chairs,
Right.
Right, and that's that thing that connects. It's exactly what you were saying. That's our dream, right? That people would see our chairs and go, oh, that's Big Neighborhood. You don't know what that is?
I just heard of this.
Well, you
thing,
know, it'd
like
be
a couple-
cool, I think, and this is, I don't know if this should be on video because it's more of a marketing tactic, but if you've looked at what I'm doing, I've been using differentiation as like the core of what I'm trying to do with my clients.
Right.
And I use these umbrellas. And if you go to my website, you'll see that there's 5 umbrellas that are black and there's one that's red. And it's like, what do you notice? But it'd be cool to do a campaign built around the chairs, and maybe there's 2 chairs, and then there's 3 chairs, and there's 4 chairs, and
Right.
and that's the community growing,
Right.
Like of
Yeah.
neighborhooders, like that community, that tribe, or that community is growing, and at some point there's
Neighborhoodians.
there's a shot of, a million of these folding chairs in the desert. And a bunch of
Rad.
people hanging out. You know what I mean? That's
That's the vision,
That's a
right?
cool
Right.
to
So that's-
see that.
When
It's got all
Michael
sorts of- yeah.
Michael came with the chairs, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. Because I'm always all I want is the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So those chairs represent a lot for me, right? Just the idea of sitting down and
Yeah.
connecting with people, all the bullshit aside, and let's just talk. And I do it all day, most days of my life. I'm doing that, right? I'm just talking to people. So yeah, you're right. We probably should have had the chairs on.
There's something like
We're
I
sitting in
just,
chairs.
yeah, right. We're
And
living
it's working.
Yeah, just like recently I heard about these like single rings. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Yep. And sort of like it's like this very hopeful thing. Like, yeah, I don't know, you can tell when somebody's married, right?
Yeah.
Got a ring on. How do you say like I'm open to like a possibility of somebody, and so they're wearing these different kinds of rings. I think they're green or something like that. I forgot. And they're like just like, yeah, I'm open to a conversation like about something that's super vulnerable, right? Like I'm wearing a thing that says it's kind of it's putting yourself out there, but hopefully but there's something super hopeful about that, right? Like maybe the person that I should be talking to is like waiting around the corner, and they just don't know,
Right.
and being open to the conversation. And hopefully the chairs can represent something like that. That'd be really cool, We have a bunch of ideas around the art and leaving
We
chairs
want
in
to
different
install the chairs
places
places and leave them.
right?
We want to photograph in places. We want to build ones that once we leave them, they can't remove. You know what I mean? Like we want to go midnight bandits with these chairs.
Yeah.
And we're making it known here. If you find a pair of chairs sitting somewhere, we probably did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
It's a little bit of like physical graffiti, leaving something that makes a place better. It's like a place. They're just like, I don't know why there's these chairs. Let's sit down and have a conversation.
let's
You know what I
clean it
mean?
up,
Like-
put some chairs there.
So, yeah.
Well, it'd be cool to go somewhere and always have 3, and you guys just set 2 down and have one sitting there to see if somebody would come up and be like, "Hey, have a seat."
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we've
Like let that organicness of that process. just
it's sort of
naturally start.
the hard part about what we're doing too is it's endless, right? Like the places we can go, the people we can do, the different topics, it's endless. So it's hard to wrap it all into one thing. I mean, obviously using mental health and community health, that helped us ground ourselves as to what we're doing, right? But there's so many opportunities. It's endless what we can go do.
Yeah.
It's endless what we can do with the chairs. And Michael and I are very, there's places we're going to put those chairs, right? And we're going to leave them there. We already have them in Fort Irwin, the base out there. They're there. Yeah. They're on the river up out of the place that we stayed, the hip camp that we stayed at, that little Tom Sawyer thing. We're trying to leave them, and it's been a little while. We, graffiti them up, paint them up. They're coming.
But yeah, like, I mean,
look out for the chairs.
I always thought about it like to go back to some other like old metaphor we know or something like that by going like, we came in, we hopped over your fence and like skated your pool because it was empty, but we tidied up and we left a better barbecue than you had, and like we're out of here.
Mowed the
People
lawn.
Like, what the hell? They like they kind of like fucked things up, but they left it better.
Then they
like,
weeded the garden. Yeah, right.
That's where to me like that shit gets pretty fun.
I think it's
like,
great.
what we can do with that.
So I had one last question, which is in 2 parts. But looking forward, what are your long-term goals for Big Neighborhood? And the second part of that is, how do you envision growing both your impact and your brand while staying true to your mission?
I'm going to go with the first one. You go with the second one.
Okay.
What was the first
Wait,
one?
well, yeah.
What
was
are
the
your
first one?
long-term goals for Big Neighborhood?
I think we've covered it a lot, right? But I'll answer it. My long-term goals for Big Neighborhood is let's deal with it in 2 ways. I want to create a company, a company that's responsible to its employees, to the community, and to show people that when's enough. You can make money, and we get it. It's capitalism. I get it. But you can also give back. There's too many companies in this country right now, Walmart being one of them, that makes so much in profit. And these people can't buy a home, the people that work there.
Yeah.
A lot of them are on federal assistance. We're paying for their employees, right? I don't ever want to be a part of that system.
Yeah.
I want to create a business, even if it's just Michael and I that make a living off of this. Okay, then it wasn't as great as it could have been. But I'd like to build a company that I can walk away from one day and know that it's going to be there, and that it's creating jobs for people, real jobs, where you can go make a living and put your kids through school. You don't have owners sucking everything out of that company.
Yeah.
For me, that's a big goal for this. And the other thing is, simultaneously, that means I could then go out and find as many people as possible that are doing cool shit and help them out. That's the real goal here, right? Is to find people doing cool shit and help them out. And it's all sorts of different stuff. There's art programs. There's people that are doing stuff in mental health. There's people that are doing things for their Latinx community where they live. There's podcasts that need help. There's all sorts of people out there. So for me, ideally, a company that can take care of be a self-sufficient company, earn a living, right?
Yeah.
And actually be a company that could take care of employees and people could go there and work. I think one of the most impressive things about Bombas Socks, I've told this to Michael, they're doing $100 million a year, and after like 12 years, they've had 2 employees leave.
That's cool.
Yeah,
It
that's
speaks
great.
volumes
Yeah.
to the culture that they're building, right? And the idea that they look out for the people that work there.
Yeah.
And as owners, they're not just bleeding that company dry and just sending people home just miserable every day, right?
Yeah.
I want people to come work at Big Neighborhood and love working at Big Neighborhood. When you and I worked together, it was fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It was a fun place to work.
Well, and when you go to a business and you see employees that have been there and people don't leave, there's something going on at
Right.
the top.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
You know, like, and I'm sure that in all those businesses, they have their challenges, but the fact that people do stay for 10, 15, 20,
I want to be proud of it.
you know, that says something for that business's leadership.
I want to be proud of it. I want it to work. I want my kids to look at it and think that's cool. And I want other people to look at the business model and go, oh, shoot, okay, we can do
I
that.
could do that for this. Or I
Right.
could do
Yeah.
this. Yeah. But
Right.
I think I may be just a little bit different here with Joe, but
Oh, you're different.
I want total world domination, Lambos, and my own personal rocket on Mars.
Yellow,
Like within
yellow,
like I don't know,
like a yellow or an orange
soon,
Lambo.
right?
Lambos.
Right, Lambos, motherfucker.
You gonna wrap it
Come on.
with 2 chairs?
Murder it
Yeah,
out.
totally.
It's just gonna be 1 chair because I don't want to.
That's a little different to Joe. I want Lambos.
All that hippie shit's cool. I just want,
Yeah.
multiple.
Yeah. No, the hippie stuff and the quinoa,
Oh,
it's
man.
great. But
Yeah.
What was the second part?
I-
Unless
yeah,
you want to
I-
answer the first
okay,
one.
the second
What was
part
the question?
was how do you
Do you want to answer the first one? Or did I kind of do it?
You can't totally
Okay.
answer the question.
how do you envision growing both your impact and your brand while staying true to your mission?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
Good answer.
I don't know. Right? Like I don't know yet. Right? I think I'm not trying to be like glib here. I just we've got our intention. We've got a lot of people who come before us that we can look at and try to figure out how to do this. People we want to get in touch with, figure out like how do you balance this stuff, you know? And so like to me, it's staying true to like what was the thing in the beginning? What were we doing? Yeah. You know, like going out and supporting other people that are doing cool stuff, like Joe just said. That if you just keep that in mind, what you're doing, it sort of settles a lot of the things that are like, because there's gonna be 1,000 questions about that. Like, I think it feels theoretical to me, like
Yeah.
how exactly it happens, but like, it's just like, I don't know. More to come on that.
Okay.
It's a great question. It's just like it's hard to project out until like because you know like how many decisions you have to make to like you're like, oh well maybe we have to do this, maybe we have to do that, and then you're like, oh how far have we strayed? You know, like I don't know. And coming back to like what was the real idea? What was the point? You know, and
Yeah.
like and transparency, just being honest, like there's where we're at. We're not the Red Cross, and or you know what I mean? Like where we are is 2 guys that have done a couple conversations, couple podcasts, tried out a couple printers. We're just like working this thing out right now, and I think more will be revealed. You know.
Okay. That's all I had.
Scott,
Thanks, man.
I appreciate
Super.
you sitting with us and doing this.
Yeah.
And like we told you from the beginning, when you're ready, there's a little piece of big neighborhood for you. You know what I mean? But it's important for us to have somebody ask these questions for us, right? So that we can start to put this stuff out so people can understand where the hell we're coming from. And I think the questions were really good.
Was that helpful?
I think
Oh,
so,
man.
man.
I think
I
so.
really do. Michael was like, well, we didn't know because there's certain things we have to talk about. I was confident that I didn't want to know the questions, right? Because I wanted to have an organic conversation about it. But looking back at it, like if I gave you the questions, excluding that last one, that was a little gnarly. Can I hear that question again?
So, looking forward, what are your long-term goals for Big Neighborhood?
No, we did
And-
that.
And how do you envision growing both your impact and your brand while staying true to your mission?
Yeah, that's tough. So they were all really good except for that one.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not-
Well, we
Might be
have a
time for a
saying
nap.
in my prior business, which is, let's put that in the too hard pile.
the too heart pile?
Too hard.
Oh, too hard?
But
Yeah, I don't think I'm prepared to even answer that.
yeah.
I don't know how to.
And I don't know. I mean,
know what I mean?
I have my own 2 cents on like what I would tell you, but I don't know what the hell do I know.
Yeah, we just haven't.
My
we haven't
my
sold a
thing
hoodie,
is like,
you know?
if you have a mission, if you've created that when you go up to your decision making process, that you're reflecting back at the mission. Is this on stay within the mission?
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting. There's a lot
And
of
I don't
times.
saying I'm right.
No. There's a lot of
that
times. There's been
process.
times in the last 18 months I've gone to Mike said this, and he's like, well, that's not really what we do. You know what I mean?
Which
So I
I
think
think-
there's a check and balance
Yeah.
between us because I'm a spaz, and I'm the dreamer of this thing, right? And it's really cool for me to go to Michael and go, hey, I don't understand branding and marketing. I've never done it, right? So it's cool to have people in my life that do, and it kind of reels me in when I get a little like, why do we do this, you know? But I think that there's that accountability to each other for what we're doing.
And look, I work in branding and marketing, and less marketing, more brand and design. But this is what you said is kind of what we would say to somebody when we're doing a workshop with them, helping them realign their vision to all that kind of stuff. But right now, I'm trying to just be really honest, and like and it feels kind of like any answer like that to me feels like BS. Like it just feels like we're not there yet, and it's not that the question's BS. Honestly, it's just that
We haven't sold a hoodie.
we haven't sold a fucking hoodie, and we're
I've given away a bunch.
it's easy to give away hoodies, it turns out, which is cool. It's our business model
And we're good
right
at it.
now. So we have to we have to get
business model.
profitability, and then we have to get and then figure out what those things are. We know we'll be really clear. I think transparency is key. I think, and I think in essence, I was saying the same thing is like a mission. The mission is like, why did it start? And that's what we do. Getting that out of people. We're like, oh, well, why did they even start this? You know, because a lot of people don't remember. You know, you get these companies that have been around 40 years, longer than that. They can't remember why it was started. They can't put a pin in. They're just like, I don't know, because I needed a job and they were hiring 1,000 people, and like you just start to lose the plot. So I don't know. I think it's just coming back to the core values of it. I think it's keeping the decision making kind of small on some of the key things, and just being open to what's coming. But because like if you look at where we are and what giving is today versus what giving was 15, 20 years ago, it's super different, right? Like the mobile phone changed a lot of how we give, you know, when you started having the Arab summer and people started using Twitter to like connect and donate, like text to this, like the way that we are doing it is so far from donating to the Red Cross and like how we're using different models. So I'm excited to see how it evolves. I'm excited to see the kids, our kids literally, but younger people, just like how they take this and build on it, you know, and how impact giving is. I hope it's different. You know what I mean? Like nonprofit world is really admirable. It's tough, man. It's a tough road.
Sure.
And so like, and it's not, you know, so I'm hoping that becomes more clear as we wander through organically and find, you know, like, and learn from what people younger than us are doing, you know, they're the ones that are doing it, right?
And from our neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of accountability we're going
That's
to get
awesome.
from the people that we're going to be doing this with, right? Like if I'm going to see Tom and I'm doing the same, Tom's going to hold me accountable too, right? He's going to participate in this thing. And I think that not to pawn off the responsibility of our actions onto the people, but I think that this is part of building the neighborhood, right? And that accountability coming from everybody that's participating in this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that if it works, we'll get that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know, we're outlining what we're doing and what we're, you know, giving 50% to the organizations of the people that we talk to, and like trying to be as clear as we can with that. We'll make some of the actual donations more clear, but like, and like, thanks for bringing up the sustainability stuff. Like it's an important piece that we're working on.
From day one, we've talked about it.
Right, and so, but it's it's just like slightly deprioritized from the conversations and the things we're interested in seeing in the,
Well, I think I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't know that it's it's down on the priority list as much as it's not feasible for us.
It's not practical
It's
at
not
this
what
point.
we can't financially do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a priority.
why.
Yeah.
Right,
right.
yeah.
It's
That's all
a
I
priority
mean.
100% for us.
Yeah.
But we have to get to a place where that's feasible. Right.
Well,
Agreed.
and maybe
Better put.
at some
Yep.
point you'll be aligned with a business like that.
It'd be great to
wants
partner up
support
with somebody
that.
that wants to do
vision,
something like that, and obviously that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
It's part of to grow the neighborhood, where from the hoodie vendor to the printer to the people we're talking to the people that are buying them. That this whole thing that it's a symbiotic deal, right? And we're all doing this thing together, and that's that business model we want to leave behind.
Yeah. Well, I know you've, from our conversations, you've made it very apparent that everybody you work with, you want to be, in a sense, like a partner, more than just a vendor.
Absolutely, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Totally.
No one's going to care about our business like we do, but we need people that want to participate in it and care enough, right?
Yeah.
So, but hey, man, honestly,
Yeah. Thanks.
questions are solid. It was really helpful for us to sort of get some of this messaging out there. How we release it at 2 hours, I don't know, right? But I think like you were talking about earlier, we can start to use pieces of this to tell this story
I
as
think
we're going and edit things out and do that. But I want to thank you, Scott, for
Yeah, you're welcome.
coming up and
Yeah.
and being a victim on the pickleball court with a smile, coming out.
It's tough to lay down like that for like 3 hours and just let you.
I mean, we haven't even played golf yet.
Right?
We're gonna play golf, and like, who knows what's gonna happen to you?
Right? I don't mind making you feel better. I know.
appreciate you,
I know
brother.
It's been tough.
I appreciate
It's
you,
been
brother.
hard.
And I'm super
Appreciate you
stoked you're in
guys.
the
Yeah.
neighborhood. You know,
Thank you.
it's gonna be good stuff.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
What the